Hello and welcome to Talking TSM, the Game House's talk show about the TSM LCS team. I'm Robert Haynes. I'll be your host, your guide into the world of TSM again. I believe we're on episode 15, maybe 16 now. So going strong, fam. Going strong and having a good time doing it. Couple quick announcements. And then we'll get to our guest here in a few moments. But the Game House has launched another show similar to this one, but this time it is about Team Liquid. Boo, right? Yeah, boo. Boo, Team Liquid. We're TSM fans. That said, if you are interested in Team Liquid, or if you know somebody who's interested in Team Liquid, have them go watch The Liquid Lowdown, hosted by Thomas Baker, one of the smartest and truly just genuine people you'll ever meet. He's really, really, really good at explaining things in terms of League of Legends, and I'm so excited that he finally is doing this. We've been talking about it for years. So, go give him some love, go give him some support. Would love for him to be able to build a community similar to this one. But again, as a TSM fan, I can't totally, put my weight behind it. But, you gotta help a guy out, even if he is cheering for the wrong team. So, yeah, if you don't mind, go give Baker a look. But with that, we are going to go into the draft buff standings as well. Your boy right now is doing real well. Real well in one league and real bad in another one. So take that with a grain of salt. But, right now I believe I'm in first. Let me see. I am currently in first place with a 2-0 scoreline. IKIM also 2-0. Right behind me in points scored, only 40 points behind me. Basically one good players weekend. The Emperors is also doing really well, 633 points, only about 40 points behind me. Trey Chains, who we played last week, 655. Ba JSM, my opponent for this weekend, I believe. Let me make sure that's correct. Yep, 1-1, also scoring 655 points. Low Smith, the High Smith, 648. Cowboy Dude, 596. Wings of Fury, 610. Getting the shaft there. That is unfortunate. Pretty high scoring team, but not doing as well. Then Mellory is 0-2 as well. Trying to make a flurry of trades, by the way. So we'll see how that goes. And then Aaron, who unfortunately has been quite busy and forgot to set his lineup because of the LCS not all playing. So that definitely did not help him out. But again, draft buff or whatever league you want, the LCS official season is starting this week. So now that the lock-in tournament's done, you can go give that a look. Also, if you didn't watch the finals this weekend, it was TL C9. TL went up quickly 2-0. C9 came back to tie it 2-2, and then Game 5 was a TL blowout, and they were crowned the champions as I kind of expected. 100 Thieves kind of threw. They did throw. I still think that they were better than C9, but, they were up 2-0. C9 came all the way back and reverse swept them. But, yeah, 100 Thieves are scary. A lot scarier than C9, in my opinion. So, they if they wouldn't have choked real hard, I think it would have been a really interesting series between them and TL. Not the C9 and TL series wasn't good, but, whatever. But, yeah, with that, we are going to move on to our to our first guest of the regular season, Aaron, one of somebody who I've known for a really long time, somebody who's worked for the Game House at different points, somebody who's been a good friend, and somebody who we've had a great time always just discussing League together. Aaron, how's it going?
Not too bad, and don't forget, the shared Ohio background we share.
Oh my gosh, how can I forget the thing that binds us together and the thing that makes us the most sad?
Yes.
Constant sadness of Reds and Bengals, just yeah.
And the Indians, don't forget the Indians,
And the Indians for you, okay. But no, so for those of you who don't know, Aaron is a coach, a caster. I don't know where you're ranked yet this season, but I know you've been up there and to Diamond at least once, right?
Unfortunately, not. The highest I've gotten was Plat 4. Okay, so
that's right.
But maybe this season I'll grind my way up to Diamond. That's the goal anyway.
Okay, that's where it came from. I remember we had talked about it. But yeah, no, but Aaron does a lot of casting. He's been doing it for a while. He's a great caster and has gotten into coaching over the last couple of years, and from what I can tell, his teams have done pretty dang well. So it's safe to say that Aaron knows what he's talking about. And there were a couple of things that he wanted to discuss. And the first one, which should hopefully lead in the second one, is the 2v2 bot lane for Lost in Sword Art. It is something that I think we would both agree TSM has struggled with, and we're hopeful that they will start to make the change. What do they have to do in your mind to start making that happen?
So the biggest thing for me, in my opinion, in terms of this is specifically in referring to versus FEI and Huhi, Vulcan and Sven, and of course the kingpins of the bot lane until they are dethroned of Core JJ and Tactical, is that number one is they need to be able to get on the same page. Is because there were numerous times where in the lock-in, like I have one specific fight in mind, where Sword Art looks to fight. I'm spacing on who they were facing, but they were under their own tower. They were down in levels, down in items, and he looks to engage as Leona into, I think it was Alistair MF or something like that. And Lost literally just dies to Bullet on the backside because there was no CC left for Sword Art to interrupt that. And Lost kind of just walks straight back in the path of Bullet time, so that was kind of a little suspect too. But like the main thing is that I feel like they aren't on the same page yet, because I think part of it might just be because it might just yes, Sword Art has very good English, but the fact that it's not his natural language, it might take him a little longer in order to get exactly what he wants across the table, because he has to stop and think about it, translate it. Potentially. Again, I'm not speaking for Sword Art, but the other side of the coin is that I think in drafts specifically against those three teams, they have to do what they can to try to get Sword Art a counterpick. Or if there is a dominant support in the meta, 100% pick that up for him, because they do not match up at this stage to the level of those three aforementioned bot lanes without either getting counter picks, having the far and away best quote unquote support on the patch, or jungle help, which I will talk about later.
Yeah, and so I think that's so. Just so you know, I believe you're talking about the Team Liquid TSM game, which was just a disaster.
Yeah, so it was Yeah, it was the TL game. That's right.
Yeah, he tries to engage onto Nautilus, and so I want to talk real quickly about a couple of things. So the first thing is you got to remember Sword Art wasn't able to practice with the team until the second week of the lock-in. So I want to say that probably has at least a little bit to do with it, right? He's still kind of meeting everybody for the first time.
Oh yeah.
And so, there's the unfamiliarity, and I think that there's twofold. I think Sword Art wants to be aggressive, and he's used to playing with top-tier AD carries. And it's not This is not a jab at any way against Lost, because I think Lost has the opportunity to be very good. He's actually reminding me in a very small way of what happened with Spica, where Spica came on the scene, and in his first, 7 or 8 games, when, TSM were in the playoffs, right, and a little bit before then, that year, he was stuck on Sejuani and was just pretty average, made some decent plays, right? It felt like Lost was stuck on Jhin duty, right? He wasn't able to pump out the damage, and he looked good on Jhin. I want that to be very clear. Like, he didn't look bad. He hit more W's than I think I've ever seen anybody hit. Like, it was insane.
I like low key. I think in terms of NA Jhin, I think the only one I've seen do better than Lost did on Jhin was Sneaky, because Sneaky is the NA Jhin.
Exactly. So, I think we have to start in draft, and I actually want to pose something a little different for you. I don't think that they should counter pick at all. I think they should just pick something that they're comfortable with in lane, because they gave they gave Sword Art the counter picks, right? And it didn't really work all that well. And now I think what they need to do is they just need to pick something that is strong, that both of them are comfortable on playing together. Because when you have a Jhin and you have a Leona, there's not as much follow-up, right? And the best game that they had was the Maokai Jhin game, if I remember correctly. And I gotta find out where that one was. Give me just a second.
I think that was against C9, I think.
I want to say you're right. But while we're looking for that, it's worth noting that TSM played a lot better with it was the CLG game.
CLG
right?
game, okay.
And so it just worked better in terms of their bot lane. Like, sure, we're not expecting Smoothie and Wild Turtle to be that great. Wild Turtle actually still had a pretty good game, but it was more about the fact that TSM gave Spica specifically the opportunity to really carry, while the rest of the team was built to disengage, set up fights, and, do the whole, roaming thing with Sword Art, right? And so, if Lost is going to be, I guess, relegated to having to 1v1 or 1v2 even, right, with Sword Art running around, that's okay as long as they give him something better than the Jhin, right? Because I think the Maokai allowed for him to, leave the saplings to give him some vision, allowed him to kind of do some stuff while still being relevant in lane. I felt like Sword Art wanted to go out and do his own thing. And
that's who Sword Art is.
Yeah, exactly. And they aren't playing to that yet. I think Bjergsen is still getting used to the fact that all of his players play a lot differently than what he was used to, the type of play that he did, right? Except for PoE. And so, and I guess Spica because he played with him, but like you get my point, right? Like they're a very different type of team. And so before we go into the TSM playstyle, I want to get your thoughts on the fact that I think that the 2v2 will not only come better with time, but I also think that in terms of the draft, they have to focus on picking something that actually has synergy or has a purpose.
Yeah, to branch off of that is, like, I did not mean to sound like there's no hope for this 2v2. There's plenty of hope for this 2v2. Like, I think Lost has plenty of potential to be top half, if not better, AD carry. And you do have a point that I always get frustrated whenever I see professional teams picking Jhin with hard engaged supports.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jhin is not a all-in AD carry. He is a poke and control AD carry. Very similar to Varus was back when Varus was better. Also, low-key, Poke Varus was brought back in the LPL the other day. That's one of Lost's best champions. So, I mean, it was only one game, but I'm still mentioning it. It's Lost historic best champion. That's why I'm mentioning it. So
I like it.
You do have a point that having the Maokai and Jin work together, because Maokai really doesn't want to fight. He really wants to play poke and control the lane.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he wants to do. And having that themed lane will enable TSM to allow Sword Art to do what he wants to do, because I'm going to touch on a little bit more during the playstyle part, is they have to enable Sword Art to be Sword Art, which is out on the map, ganking other lanes, getting deep vision down. That's where Sword Art shines. He is still a strong 2v2 laner, but that's not his biggest strength.
Which is what TSM is still learning, right? And it's going to be, I think it's worth noting, that's a little bit of a different style than what the rest of the LCS and specifically the other top tier teams run. You know, specifically the top 3 teams right now, C9, 100 Thieves, and TL, they almost all run with a solo side top laner and an aggressive, but, you know, still can be supporty type jungler, right? And a solid mid laner who, well, you know, Damonte is, I guess, the outlier here. But then, you know, they focus on the bot lane to be the carry a lot of the time. And so I think TSM is going to, you know, use, heading into the second part of this, the ability to have a different style of bot lane. And I think that that's okay. And I think whether they, you know, I am not advocating for this, but if they ever decided to go with Cody Sun, I think that's why they signed him as well. They understand that that's the way that they want to go at some point, right? They want to not, sorry, wow, that sounds terrible. They understand that the way that they are going to play is allowing Sword Art to go do what Sword Art does best, which is roam and make plays for the team. And whether it is Lost or Cody Sun, that they will both allow that to happen. Whereas, we know what Cody Sun is. I think, you know, the unknown with Lost is what's allowing him to, you know, be this player. And I think he wants to be more aggressive. But I think he's going to have to find that in the team fighting, which, you know, leads me into TSM's playstyle. I don't think we got a very good understanding of the way TSM wants to play the game at the lock-in tournament. What do you think, Aaron?
Not at all. Like, this is projecting out. So if we take a hard look at how the roster is set up, is you have playmaking top laner and Huni. That is what his biggest strength is. He likes making plays. He likes having agency. Spica can be a carry, but still really likes making plays and being aggressive and being able to make things happen. Again, another agency-centric player. PoE is you put him in the mid lane, and he is just going to be your solid rock, and you don't really need to interact with him much in order for him to do what he needs to do. Mm-hmm. However, if you give him resources, he will most certainly take off and carry them. Just watch what Ignar did Ignar has done for PoE in the past, which I think Sword Art can do should things play out the way I'm hoping going forward. Lost when he played with Treats last year, which I want to talk about because that was Lost's quote-unquote peak as a player, not because even though he was in the LCS previously, back in Echo Fox, I think we can all agree he was not very impressive back then. I think we can agree with that for those who remember that far back.
Yeah, he was okay, but yeah.
Is how him and Treats were arguably the best bot lane in Academy for all of 2020, alongside Tomo and Diamond for C9. They were a very lane-centric team in terms of their 2v2. Now with Sword Art, he's kind of having to learn how to function on himself. And that's going to take a little bit of time. Like if we saw like TSM in week two and week 3 which is the knockouts of Lucken, was a far better team than week 1, but there's still a lot more growing to do. So learning how to set up Lost to be on that 1v2 scenario or 1v1 scenario if both supports are roaming is going to be the X factor. And I kind of have a little bit of an idea on how to make that happen. And then, of course, Sword Art, he wants to be roaming. He wants to be making plays. So you have lots of playmakers on this roster.
Yeah.
But not so much a carry, which is my concern.
Really? I think Spica's the carry. That's what I have been preaching at a lot of people, is I think Spica's the carry. And I think they need to lean into that and allow him to be that. Similar to how Schalke, do with Gilius. Right? When they made their miracle run, sure, Abadage stepped up and a lot of other people stepped up, but like Gilius was the catalyst. And I think that, I think Spica can and should be that carry. They should put their eggs in his basket. That's what I see style-wise.
I don't disagree. My only concern is with the patch that's coming up, which won't be active for week 1 of LCS, is a lot of the bruiser items are getting nerfed, and which could swing the jungle away from carry junglers aside from AP junglers. And outside of Nidalee, we haven't seen a lot. Like Nidalee and some Lilia is what we've seen. We haven't seen him on the Taliyah, which is the other big one. And I think Elise could make a comeback with bruisers coming out of the meta going forward. But the biggest thing for TSM, I think, in terms of getting to their quote-unquote style is making sure Spica and Huni have agency to make plays happen.
Yeah.
Because Huni is not your weak side top laner. He can do it, but he's not. It's not like you can put him on Sion or something or leave him on an island. Like, he has to have some way of impacting the game, even if you're playing weak side with him. Which is why I think like champions like Aatrox and Renekton, Fiora, like the more carry top laners outside of course, the Aatrox, is not something that I really want to see him on. I want him to see him on his Rumble, his Cannon, obviously the Ornn, the Gangplank, things that allow him to make plays, but not also require resources to be able to operate independently. And then, of course, Spica allows Spica to be able to keep up with the enemy jungler and not necessarily affect the lanes, but allow the lanes to do what they need to do. Because I don't think for initially that there is going to be a great amount of synergy between the lanes and Spica. So I think the best thing they can do is, as you said, is enable Spica to be the carry, have people playing for Spica, get Sword out of lane early, and getting invade set up so Spica can start snowballing. Because I think the meta is going to shift away from the things like the Olaf, the Renektons, the Aatrox, because all their items are getting hard nerfed.
You're not wrong.
And if you can get those playmakers on the table, that's going to be TSM's best chance going forward, because I'm not worried about PoE right now. I know a lot of people have been dooming and glooming about PoE's performance in the lock-in. It's just like, if you go back historically, PoE's very rarely performing great. Like, peak PoE is rarely spring PoE.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this team is full of playmakers, and I think some people can confuse that to being like, oh, so you're just saying that, nobody's ever going to carry. I think what makes this team unique is that anybody can carry, right? To a certain degree. Like, no, they're not going to be TL, with the, like, literally everybody can carry. But it's more of going to be like the anybody can carry based on what the team needs.
not what they want. And I think that that's something that TSM fans are just going to have to get used to, because they're just so used to, being like, okay, well, how are we going to win this game? Bjergsen, right? Oh, we can't figure out, what we're going to do. How are we going to win it? Bjergsen, right? Like, oh, who's going to carry us today? Bjergsen, right? Like, that's not there anymore.
Unfortunately, there's no Bjergsen answer for multiple choice this year.
No, there is not. And so, I want everybody to remember as we go into this season, they're going to figure it out. When? I don't know. I'm hopeful that it is sooner rather than later. And they showed it in the first game against C9. That was their best game yet to this season. And that was against a team that went to finals. So I want to see them come up with this style and just do it, right? Like, I mean, this team is weirdly comparable to last year's FlyQuest team. Who was the carry on FlyQuest? Not really anybody, but everybody, right? Ignar could go out and make plays. Wild Turtle did his job, similar to how I think Lost is going to do his job. PoE is the same kind of player, right? I think Spica's a little bit more carry-oriented than Santorin, but he still has the big brain. He has the ability to work around objectives. And then I see Huni in a similar way with a higher ceiling, but probably a little bit of a lower floor than Solo. So I could see this team being very similar to FlyQuest, which was a team that a lot of people really liked. And sure, at times did they really need that carry? Absolutely. I think the difference between this team and FlyQuest, truly, is going to be the fact that I think Sword Art will end up being a little bit better than Ignar. I think PoE is going to end up being a better version of himself, being able to work with Bjergsen. And I think Spica isn't better than Santorin, but is able to carry his team more so than Santorin is. Santorin sets other people up, which is why I think, side note, he's going to be outstanding on TL. I think he's going to kill it.
Like, low-key, I think Santorin's the best facilitating jungler in the LCS.
Yeah, he might be one of the best ones in the entire world, truly.
Yeah.
To be honest. But yes, so, yeah, I that's what I see. I could see them being similar to FlyQuest, which is good. I don't think you have any issues with that. I would be fine with that. Sure, I'd like for them to win, unlike FlyQuest was able to do last season. But if this team ends up being as successful as FlyQuest, but is actually able to make it to Worlds in their first season together, I'm totally happy with that.
I think it is an entirely possible goal, because I think what allowed TL, C9, and 100 Thieves and EG to some extent be very successful, none of those teams had a ton of changes with their roster.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of the pieces that they brought over were either already in NA or are quote unquote natural English speakers. So there's a very much shorter learning curve than bringing in Sword Art, who's obviously very, very good at English, but it's not like he's a European player or an NA player. Like, there's always going to be that slight difference, and I don't want to harp on that any further, but to continue on from that, the potential of this team can very easily match the other teams. It's just the road to get there is longer, and it's probably going to have quite a few bumps along the way. And I want to just stress to anyone in the TSM fan system, on the TSM subreddit, or the TSM Discord, give this team time. It's not going to be an overnight success story. It's going to probably take, I want to say, probably 2 to 3 weeks of the spring split before we start seeing concrete consistency from this roster.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think they will have games where you're just like, oh my god, what the heck? This is amazing. Why can't they always play like that? And then you have Huni goes 0-4 in 10 minutes games, like, just as an example. So just don't overreact if things go poorly at the start of the season, because TSM's going to be in the hunt at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be in the hunt for Worlds. Whether or not they make it there, I'm kind of 40-60 on that right now, depending on how things play out with how the roster ends up playing out, because EG looks really, really good in plans in the lock-in. But they have every potential in the world, because every one of these players has potential to at least be solid in terms of the world-class perspective. Like, I will, as with you, I am banging the drum for Spica. I think Spica can be a world-class jungler from North America.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think those words have ever come out in reference to a North American jungler, because I don't even think Xmithie was ever considered a world-class jungler, at least in terms of complete picture. If you know what I mean.
No, I think that's... I mean, I think a lot of people might have had him a little bit higher ranked than you might have mentally, but I get what you're saying. Like, there are only a certain amount of players and you know, whatnot who have the ability to affect the game that Spica does. And even though Xmithie was the smite god back in the day, I already think Spica might be better than him at that. Like, that kid, and I don't want to
50-50. It is not a 50-50.
Yeah, he instantly gives TSM a better chance than anybody else. And it's like, how do I put this? I know that smiting is not the reason, and we're a little off topic. We'll wrap up here in a second, but
yeah,
I want to say that TSM's style, to bring it a little bit back, has to revolve around how they're going to use Spica to win. And there are very few junglers who that can be said, you know, about, especially in this day and age when it's all about, you know, carry mid laners, you know, bot lane duos and top laners. It feels like junglers are often left out. And what Spica brings, while it's not the most important thing, is the ability to have objective control. And I cannot understate the importance of that when building a team. And while he may not be there yet, macro or micro, he is getting there. He only has upside left, and he's already the best person at objective control in the entire LCS, potentially at least in the West. I've watched a lot of LEC games. I don't know that Yankos or Selfmade are getting in there stealing, you know, Barons and, you know, securing Dragons and Rift Heralds like Spica is. If his team can just zone enough, long enough, he will make it happen. Even if they don't, you know, he'll die and make sure that he gets it. I mean, it's something that I've never seen before, and TSM need to play around that.
Yes, I 100% agree, because with the way the game is right now, and I don't see that changing, is objective understanding and control is incredibly important. That does not mean you need to contest every single objective. You just have to understand what you're giving up with that actual objective versus what reward you get from if you go for this objective. It's a matter of balancing the two to make sure, okay, if you're not going for this objective, you need to be getting something significant on the other side of the map, as in Drake trades or tower trades or that type of thing. Because you can't just say, oh, this objective doesn't matter and we're just not going to do anything. You have to always be doing something. And to be honest, the only jungler, like, to speak to your jungle point, I'd honestly say the best securer in the LEC is probably Gilius.
Probably.
I would say Gilius and then maybe Inspired second, but Rogue rarely gets in a situation where that needs to happen. But that's a side note real quick. So, like, my final point I want to say is that Spica is going to be the engine that makes this team go.
Mm-hmm.
Sword Art's going to do whatever he can to grease the wheels and make sure everything goes well so Speaker can get the power down and get the power to PoE, get the power to Lost, and be that transition point to they can get to team fighting, because I don't think you can underestimate how good this team can be at team fighting.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually
insane.
nuts if all the pieces go together. And when TSM was at their best, they were the best Western team fighting team. Like, going back to 2016 and 2017, I don't think anyone in the West team fought as well as they did. And they have the potential to be that good again. Just breathe, relax. It's going to be bumpy road, but I believe in this TSM team. I believe in Bjergsen. We're going to get there. Just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the fact that you still have some of those fun players. Like, this might not be broken played, but Hooney's still a pretty hilarious guy. So it's like, almost making up for that. I miss Broken Blade too, but
well, it sounds
still
like,
smurfing over there in the LEC.
It sounds like you've been listening, to these Talking TSM podcasts or something, because as you know, I've been preaching a message of patience. So, no, I appreciate your time, Aaron, and it's always good to talk to you, my friend.
As always, it's a pleasure.
All right, and that was a pretty solid segment there. Glad that we could talk about that. There were a lot of good points, and hopefully we'll see TSM come out and work on both the bot lane and figuring out what their playstyle really is. So, good talk there with Aaron. But now we head into topic 2. Or I should say, the next part of the show, which is, going to be talking about what happens this week. Week 1, schedule's finally released after everybody was waiting forever. And the LCS finally updated everything late Tuesday. This is being recorded on Wednesday. So if any news breaks between now and before the show comes out, may have to pop in and do a little quick segment. I doubt anything will come out for TSM, but, we'll see. But this weekend's opponents are FlyQuest, Cloud9, and CLG. Not a bad first week for TSM. And we're going to just get started. Again, I've gone in depth into, how things go in the past in terms of, breaking down how TSM did. I want to kind of do something a little bit similar to that, but previewing the weekend. So, there will be a lot of preview and review technically, but I really want to break down the analysis and analyze everything that I'm thinking and everything that I see. If you guys like this direction, please let me know, down in the comment section below or on Reddit or on Twitter. I'm open to changing around the way I do this show. I just think that it's really important to talk to you guys about how I see these games going and what I think is going to happen. So hopefully you all will like that. Again, if not, and you want me to just break down certain aspects or, make it a little less previewy, reviewy, let me know. Obviously, I want to, make sure that I am listening to your all's feedback as well. With that, let's get started. So FlyQuest is going to be game 1 for TSM, and it's going to be played at, let's see here, I think they're the first game of the day. They are at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and I'm really excited for this one. FlyQuest looked a lot better with Jose Diodo during the lock-in tournament, and, TSM have had 2 weeks now to really kind of get it together before this series. So plenty of time to come into this game. There should be no chance that they are unable to come in with a plan. They should have a plan lined up, but, we'll see what happens. I want to go over kind of my keys to a win for TSM, and then I will go into my prediction. So the first thing is TSM has to keep Jose Dioto in check. And that means not necessarily, keeping him from getting kills or, making an impact in one lane, but just keeping him down and not allowing him to have an impact on the map and the way that the game is played. And we saw this when FlyQuest made their run to be able to make it into the lock-in playoffs. They started 0-2. Nixie looked not great, to say the least. And then we have, TSM, we have Jose Dioto who comes in, and they look like a new team, and they looked stronger. They looked more coordinated, which is funny to say for a player who, hasn't been practicing with them necessarily, in the same building. I'm sure he was practicing from home to a certain degree, but yeah, they just looked more coordinated. They looked more aggressive. They looked like they had an idea of what they wanted to do. And so for TSM, I think that they need to make sure that Spica either has counterpick or whatever the OP jungler ends up being on this new patch that they are playing on. And so I want to see them really focus on that. I want them to not allow Jose Dioto, to a certain degree, to play the game, right? Like, I want Spica to be all over the map. I want him to be, every time that Jose Dioto thinks that he's getting an edge, or every time that he thinks that, hey, I can make a play here, I want Spica to be there to counter it, or PoE, or Huni, or whatever. I want to see this team's macro game really start to come into play, because Jose Dioto is going to be aggressive. I think that's just the way the junglers are these days. And so, I really want to see them prioritize making sure that Spica is able to take advantage of the fact that Jose Dioto is still young. He's still, trying to figure it out with his team. It's just, again, it's only his second week, I think. I guess technically third week in the LCS. And, I want them to really push his buttons. I want them to make sure that Spica, who I would argue is currently our best player, is able to do things that best players do. And that starts in the draft. If they do the same stuff where they let the AD carry get picked first, and then they pick the AD carry and then the jungler, I'm not going to be happy with that. I want to see them learn from their mistakes, and I want them to realize, hey, our best chance to win, especially in this game, is if Spica just gets to manhandle and take it over and just do his thing and make Jose Dioto's life a living hell. And if they can do that on picks again like Olaf, maybe Nidalee, I have seen that Sejuani and other things are coming into the meta, so we'll see if that stays. But even like Udyr, I hope Spica's just been grinding Udyr. If they're going to allow Udyr to come into the game, we don't know which side, at least I don't think we know which side TSM will be on, but especially if TSM have first pick, take the Udyr. Take somebody that's going to allow Spica to make plays and to be all around the map. So that's point number one. The second one is Power of Evil has to abuse Palafox. And when I say abuse, I mean I want him pushed under tower, not able to CS, not able to do anything, right? I want PoE to be getting around the map with Spica and making plays, because it just felt like PoE during the lock-in was not comfortable, or wasn't able to do the things that he normally is able to do, because they were putting him on picks that, sometimes on picks that he wasn't as necessarily comfortable with. I don't care if he plays Orianna every game if he plays well, right? And I want him to feel the ability to be able to push in the lane and know that he's not going to get killed instantly by Jose Dioto. I want them to, because Power of Evil is better than Palafox. Anybody who argues differently is just straight up wrong. Palafox may eventually be better than him, but that's years down the road, and that's not even a possibility currently, because we know what PoE is, we know how good he is, and it's time for him to step up, right? It's time for him to be like, hey, I'm going to make your life, again, miserable for this entire game. I'm not going to give you a chance to breathe, because you're going to have to worry that you might get dove under the mid lane tower, or you're going to have to worry that you're going to have a big-ass minion wave coming at you while I'm roaming and getting Huni ahead or getting the bot lane ahead. So, I want them to put something together that allows PoE to be comfortable. I don't want to see him on TF. I'd be fine to see him on Galio. I know he doesn't really play it, but that'd be a fine champion. Looks like Ryze is coming into the meta instead of TF. I'd be fine with him on that as well. I want to see him remind everybody that he is at a minimum a top 3 mid laner in the LCS, and that Palafox just is not there yet. And I want him to remind everybody of that. I want us to be sitting there like, oh, wow, okay, PoE just dominated Palafox. He made sure that, again, the Palafox had no sway in the map. And I think if they can do that, then that's great. And even if Palafox plays something like TF or Galio or Ryze, right, and he's able to go around the map, that's fine. But I want PoE to push the hell out of it. I want him to take that tower and make Palafox, uncomfortable with ever leaving the mid lane again. I want PoE to really take advantage of the fact that he is better, he is more experienced, and yeah, he should abuse Palafox. So that's my hope for point number 2. Point number 3 is they should get bot lane ahead. In the games that FlyQuest came back /1 in, Johnson had time to actually farm up, get himself to a point where he is extremely useful, and then go out and win the game, honestly. And obviously there were plays made by Jose Diodo and everything else too, and allowed him to get ahead at different points. When I was going back and rewatching the game, I saw that, but if Johnson isn't as comfortable or if TSM are able to focus on having Spica gank, having again PoE use his advantages in the mid lane by being able to roam bot, make plays, that's where I want their focus to be. So if you can kind of put all those together and see my game plan, right? It's to pick winning matchups specifically for PoE and for Spica, and to allow them to take advantage of the skill gap that I believe is there between their opponents, and then to take their advantages into the bot lane and get them ahead. Because so far we have seen the bot lane has struggled to a certain degree. They don't just seem to be on the same page yet, and it just doesn't feel like everything is in place. And to make up for that, they need to let their players who are certainly more comfortable at a minimum help them out. And so if I'm TSM's draft strategy, again, you get PoE, you get Spica, good picks, potentially counter picks. You give bot lane something that, sure, maybe they won't be able to dominate lane with, but something that they're at least able to stay even with. And then truthfully, maybe you just blind pick Huni Ornn or Gragas or something like that, to where he can have a team fighting impact, and so that if he gets a little bit behind in lane, it doesn't really matter because his abilities, aren't as dependent on him being ahead in farm, or he's able to make up for potential small mistakes. So that's what I'm seeing with FlyQuest, against FlyQuest for TSM. And I am predicting that they should win this game. I do think that, if they come in with a good strategy, they do have better players, and just frankly, they need to enable specifically Spica and PoE to do what they do best and allow their advantages to spread into the other lanes, specifically the bot lane. So, hopefully Huni doesn't get in trouble with Licorice, but we'll have to see with that one. That's the only place I'm, I guess, kind of concerned. But overall, when I look at, even if it's just a best of one series, right? Anybody can win technically, but when I look at it, TSM should have the advantage here. They should get a dub. heading into C9, that game's going to be obviously a little bit more complicated. But there's a very clear path for me in beating C9 after watching a lot of their games this weekend. The first thing is they need to attack Fudge relentlessly. Relentlessly. Don't let him get a Camille, right? None of that. And they need to make sure that he is put on something that maybe he's not as comfortable with. Or they need to pick, the Camille for themselves or the Renekton for themselves. I don't care if they pick Fiora. I don't care what it is. Pick whatever it is. Allow for Spica to get his Nidalee maybe. Or, Olaf or whatever it is. I just want to see him up in the top lane constantly. And I think it was game 5. Yeah, it was game 5. Alphari just absolutely kept up the attack on Fudge. He didn't give him a chance to breathe, right? It was just like, oh, he just got ganked. Fudge got back to lane, and then guess what? He gets ganked again, right? And it was the Alphari, giving himself the advantages, and then that allowed Santorin to come up and make these plays. That allowed for Jensen to make these plays with him. And this happened the entire series. And sure, Huni's not probably as good as Alphari right now. That's fine. But what we do know is Fudge is very tiltable, right? And when he's just getting beat to a pulp, C9 did not respond well. They just didn't. And so, if I'm TSM, I'm coming into these games, or this game specifically with C9, and I'm like, okay, our focus is to make sure that Huni gets ahead. I'd even be willing to put him on Rumble in this matchup, right? Put him on something where for a fact that he is going to be able to just walk up and just be able to 1v1 him enough to where, Spica can be there. And so, and be able to counterattack if he needs to, or counter gank, right? Because I'd have to think that Cloud9 is kind of noticing this with Fudge right now, and they might give him a little bit of extra protection when it comes to Blabber, kind of maybe sitting up there. But either way, who cares? They just need to make sure that Fudge is behind and that he's so far behind that the rest of the map kind of gets thrown out of whack. And then it's just up to, at that point, it's up to PoE and Lost in Sword Art to just kind of be there. Just don't die. Just keep your lanes relatively even and allow Huni and Spica to get so far ahead because of everything that's been going on in the top lane that then the rest of the game doesn't matter. That leads me into my second point. TSM will probably need to be pretty far ahead before 25 minutes or nearing the end of the game at that point, because Blabber and Sven, when given time, and Vulcan obviously too, he's a playmaker, there's no doubt about it. But when they're too far behind, Vulcan will start to make plays that normally would work if they were even or close to even and ahead. We saw in the TL series that when he didn't have that ability, they struggled a lot. So I want to see them try to get a pretty big lead, or they need to have a big lead by 20 to 25 minutes. Otherwise, they could very easily see what happened to them during the lock-in finals, or lock-in, I guess, quarterfinals, where, C9 were able to come back. So I don't want to see that happen. I want to see them start early, get ahead by attacking Fudge, and then I also want to see them focus on Drakes. Because if Fudge is losing, he's not looking good, right? And Spica can then pull off. Maybe they give up Drake number 1. Hopefully not. But, at a minimum, they need to have one of the first 2 Drakes. And preferably, they need to just kind of snowball it from there. Because by 25 minutes, or by 20 minutes, preferably, you would like for them to already have 3 Drakes. Because then they're forcing, C9 to have to team fight. And if Fudge is super far behind, it doesn't matter how good Sven or Blabber are in terms of their mechanical skills. And TSM should be at least able to be close to matching that. And at that point, if they can make Fudge relatively useless, they're playing a 4v5. Again, we saw TL. This was the strategy they implemented, and it was one that worked. They focused on the Drakes. They focused on making Fudge, relatively useless. And bada bing, bada boom, they won the series, right? And they used this relatively to perfection in Game 5, where they were, it was just dominant. It wasn't even really that fun to watch because it had been a relatively even series up to that point. I think it was more, again, that TL were throwing than anything else. But, TL just came in and dominated. And I want to see TSM learn from what TL did and do the same thing. My prediction for this game, if they have fixed the draft to a certain degree, if they have fixed some of the comm issues, and if they don't, and if they attack Fudge and they don't allow Sven and Blabber to kind of level up as the game's going, and be still in the running, be too close to the point where they can just kind of do their thing and take over the game, I think TSM can win here. But I will say, out of their 3 games this weekend, this is the one I will predict is the most likely for a loss. C9 is still really good. It seemed like Perkz was starting to get a little bit more comfortable towards the end. He was still not very good pretty much the entire tournament, truthfully. But that's okay. TSM learned they did take a game off of C9. They should look at that game film and the Game 5 film from the finals and be like, let's combine everything that happened there and take it to the C9. Sorry, I'm talking really fast because I want to try to get through all this stuff without it being too long of an episode. So, man, I feel like I'm I don't know, talking way too fast. I haven't even had anything caffeine-wise or anything. I guess I'm just excited, honestly. Really excited. We're in the regular season now, and that feels good. I like the lock-in tournament. It was pretty cool, but regular season, it's just something different. It all counts now. The world, or the road to Worlds literally begins on Friday. I want to remind you, the spring results do count towards Worlds in a very different way than they used to. It's not, you get points for where you end up. It's your record counts towards your standing for the summer split. So, spring does matter. The old Doublelift adage of spring doesn't matter. It does now. It matters in a very big way. So, yeah, I guess I'm just really excited because hopefully our trip to Worlds starts on Friday and starts off well. Okay, talking a little bit less fast, going into the CLG game. Griffin is still going to be likely starting for the team. It does not seem like Brox is going to be there outside of, a miracle, and he, tells us today that he is flying in to LA. That team already looked pretty bad. TSM didn't play well against them, but they played well enough to be able to, kind of destroy them by the end. And, I feel bad because Wiggly/Griffin, seems like a nice kid, and I'm sure he's worked really hard, but there's just something that's not there for him. And so, in a similar vein to the Jose Diodo game, except probably to a much bigger degree, I want them to focus on Spica. Again, when you have certain advantages, you need to take advantage of them, right? You have to use your advantages to get you ahead. And in both the FlyQuest and especially in the CLG game, TSM's biggest advantage is in the jungle. I want to see Spica have an outstanding weekend. I want him to remind us of how good of a player he is. We saw that. We saw it during the lock-in tournament, but it felt like there was something holding him back. I want them to unleash Spica. I want the rest of the league to be talking about at the end of week 1, holy shit, Spica was an absolute madman. Because he can do that. But TSM have to allow that to happen. They have to make sure that he is unlocked, unchained, and just going at it. Griffin, it needs to be, closing out of his league client on on Sunday, being like, man, I wish I would have just watched the Super Bowl instead. That's what I want him to feel like. But then I want him to feel great the next day, because, again, he seems to be a good boy. So the second point is I want them to focus on fixing any mistakes that they had in the previous 2 games. So whether it's draft mistakes or macro mistakes or comm mistakes or, Baron fight mistakes, Dragon fight mistakes, level 1 mistakes, 2v2, team fighting, whatever it may be, whatever mistakes that they see in games 1 and 2, I want this to be the game where they kind of use it almost as practice. Because as bad as it sounds, that might be what CLG are. They're not starting Pobelter this weekend. Apparently, they're starting Deus. And I don't know why. Pobelter, yeah, he didn't look good during the tournament, but neither did Wild Turtle or Smoothie. So, yeah, I mean, if CLG even win a game this weekend, I will be shocked. I'll just put it that way. And TSM should absolutely not be the team that allows them to have that one lucky win. So, I want them to use this as a time to okay, hey guys, listen, we made some mistakes in day 1 and 2. Hopefully they still won, but, whatever those mistakes are, we are going to work on them in a live, real game right now. And that's fine. It's week 1. Do it. No big deal. Then, I said this before I knew that Pobelter was not going to be there, but this is especially true. Pobelter, Power of Evil has to dominate. I'm not talking about just abusing his matchup with Palafox. I am talking that Power of Evil needs to make it known that his presence is enough to absolutely scare CLG into submission. Man, I'm being aggressive today. But that's how I feel about this game. I mean, Power of Evil looked almost invisible at times during the tournament. And I know that he's better than that. I've seen him do it. I saw him on the world stage last year with FlyQuest absolutely dominate kids. We know that he can do it. We have seen him do it year after year after year. And this weekend specifically, he faces 2 of the bottom tier mid laners and one of the best mid laners of all time, but he's not doing anything right now. So this should be a favorable weekend for Power of Evil. And even if Friday and Saturday don't necessarily go the way that he was hoping, I want him to use this CLG game as a springboard. I want him to just go in and be 10-0 on Syndra or Orianna or something, and everybody's like, that's what PoE looks like. That is the man they call Power of Evil. That's what I want to see. And then my prediction is this has to be a win. Anything but a really strong win against CLG will be a disappointment for this team. If they barely win, they've got a lot to be worried about. Even in week 1. Because you got to remember, theoretically, this would be something like a mid-season game for this team, right? They had 2 full weeks of games before. They played a total of 7 games. So technically, that would mean that if this was last spring, they would have already played through weeks 1 through 3. Then their Friday game would put them through week 4. That would mean that this CLG game would technically be their week 5 game. Week 5. And at that point in the season, we're probably starting to worry if TSM's just looking to be about a 500 team. So Sunday's game against CLG is a big one in terms of, they have to win that game. And it feels weird to say that when we're just at the beginning of the season, but like I cannot emphasize it enough. That has to be a win for this team. Because if they lose that game, then it's possible / likely that they're looking at an 0-3 score line. And at that point, all the red flags are going up. All the alarms are going off. The money that was spent, Reggie will probably start stepping in. Now, I will tell you, that's doomsday scenario. That's not, I don't think that is going to happen. But that's doomsday scenario right there, 0-3. That's bad. That is really bad. But, again, I don't anticipate it. I expect 2-1. You know, I should say I am going to predict 3-0. I expect 2-1. At an absolute minimum, they have to go 1-2 for me not to be on here raving like a madman, like I'm already almost doing. But like, you know, if we get into week 2 and this team's 0-3, wow, it might be the shortest episode yet, because I may just sit here and be like, I don't know what to say. I'm lost. I can't understand what's going on at this point. Hopefully not. Hopefully we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. But we head into the last topic. I know this has been another long one. Again, expect probably, hour-long episodes. Just how it's going to be for now. Hopefully you guys are enjoying them, because I'm enjoying them. The rest of the schedule got released. Some interesting things. I am glad that TSM will get C9 and TL within their first 5 games. I think that allows their last 4 IMT, EG, 100 Thieves, and Dig, before they finish the first round robin. I kind of like that, Luckily, they also have a really nice little first 4 games, to be honest. There's a good chance that they go into the TL game. Not a good chance. There's a good chance. There's a good chance that they go into the TL game, next Saturday on the 13th. Right before Valentine's Day, if I remember correctly, or sometime around then. Not in relationship, but I was in one for a very long time. Yeah, I remember those sorts of things. Anyways, I think I could see them going into that TL Series 4-0. They get FlyQuest, CLG, and Golden Guardians specifically. I think 3-1 would be pretty cool, but 4-0 would be nice. Then, they get another break with IMT. Then they hit EG and 100 Thieves after that. Those will potentially be some tough games, but definitely winnable. Although I think by week 3, 100 Thieves may have established themselves as the second best team in the LCS. Hot take, but yeah, I'm still thinking 100 Thieves are going to be really good. Then we get Dignitas, TL again, and then we have weeks 4 and the beginning of 5. Oh man, look at that stretch of games. CLG, FlyQuest, Dig. That's exciting. It's nice. That's good stuff. Then, the latter part of week 5 will be tough. You get 100 Thieves in C9, and then, hopefully at that point, TSM are, at least 9-ish wins. 8 would be fine too. 7 at the worst, right? That would put them at 7 and 8. I don't want to imagine a world where they're 7 and 8, but if they are 7 and 8 by the time week 6 rolls around, luckily they will have EG, IMT, and Golden Guardians to round it out, which will give them their chance to basically win their way into the playoffs. And so, that's something that's important. With this full schedule, we get a chance to look at it and seriously ask ourselves, right? Where is this team? What do we expect them to do? And where are going to be the focal points of the first part of the season? And so, I look at it and again, I see opportunities, but I do see some potential stumbling blocks for them. And I worry a little bit about not motivation. What is that word? Why can't I not remember it? I can't remember it, and it doesn't matter. When this team can get on a roll, and I can see them doing very well this season, even if they lose both of their games to TL, C9, and 100 Thieves, and maybe drop one game to EG or FlyQuest. That's 7 losses. This team can win out the rest of those games. They can go 11-7. They should not lose to Dig, so that's two wins. They should not lose to CLG, even with Broxa. There's 4 wins. They definitely should not lose to IMT. 6 wins. That's 6 wins right there. Okay. And so, I would hope, like those 3 teams alone would make it so that if TSM lost to 100 Thieves, and TL and C9, both of those games, they probably won't. But if they do, then, that would allow TSM to have wiggle room, right? Because at that point, they're 6-6, and then they're playing the rest of the league, and I can see them, really having a good season. Like I right now, I'm gonna soft predict 10-8. I do think that they surprise and they take a game off of maybe TL. I think they do take a game off C9. I see them losing, splitting with both of those teams. I just don't think 100 Thieves is a good matchup for them. I just don't. So I see them losing both their games to 100 Thieves right now. And then I see them potentially just dropping a game because they, forget how to play for some reason against, one of the other bottom tier teams. But, right now I see them somewhere around 10-8, 11-7. And, then we see what playoffs are like. Generally speaking, 8 wins get you into the playoffs in this league. I know it's going to be top 6 this year for the spring playoffs or whatever they're going to end up calling them, whatever helps them get to MSI. I don't want to see TSM go 8-10. I think that would be their first losing record ever, maybe. But they're better than that. So, at a minimum, we're halfway through the season and they go, all right, Huni and Lost aren't really working out for us. We're throwing in Cody Sun and Hanser. Super stable, reliable. The ceiling's not as high as Lost and Huni, but, damn it all if they aren't going to help us get to the playoffs, right? And do so potentially in style. So I like the way this team is set up. I'm happy we're going into the season, and I do feel confident. I don't want this to seem like I am not confident in this team. What it is for me is I'm somebody who tends to look at the worst case scenario, and then I try to be a little bit more optimistic than that, and then that's where my reality lies. And so, I'll be honest, if you come to this podcast thinking that I'm just going to be here, praising TSM and just fanboying over everything about them, and they're going to win every game 18-0. You're on the wrong podcast. And you're listening to the wrong guy. Because I'm never going to tell you that, unless if I actually believe it. And this team has flaws. And that's okay. As long as they learn from them. And as long as they get better. And as long as they understand and know what their flaws are and how to correct them. Or how to at least band-aid them enough to be good still. So, yeah. I'm excited for this weekend. I'm excited to watch these games. I'm sad that TSM's playing during the middle of the freaking Super Bowl. Not that I guess that could have been avoided, but whatever. Either way, my question of the week is just going to be straight up, what do you expect their record to be by the end of the split season, whatever it's called? Spring, by the end of spring. Again, question of the week. What do you think TSM's record will be come spring playoffs? Let me know in the comments below, and also let me know on Reddit. Whew! What an episode 1 for the regular season. All right. If you like the show, please take a second to like, subscribe, and comment if you're watching on our YouTube channel. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss another episode. Also, again, I want to make this the #1 TSM podcast on all podcasting platforms. I don't know how many other ones there are out there, but let's make this #1. If you feel so inclined, please leave a review. I really appreciate it, especially to those of you who already have. Please share this with your friends as well. I think they might like it, if for no other reason than to laugh at me and, my idiocies. Sure, entertainment, right? Maybe, hopefully. You can find the official tweet if you're on Twitter, either on my account at TGHRobertHaynes. Go throw me a follow. I'm nearing 1,000 followers, by the way. Would love to get some extra follows. Or the Gamehouse's Twitter account at TGH Esports. They have more than 1,000. A lot more. Please use the hashtag TalkingTSM when tweeting at us or sharing anything. Lastly, head to the Gamehouse and head to the TSM page under the Esports and League of Legends tabs to see all of our TSM content that is mostly written by moi. With that, thank you so much for tuning in. As a reminder, this show comes out every Thursday and is exclusively for your TSM earholes. I am Robert Haynes, and this has been Talking TSM. See y'all next week.